I genuinely think that 2026 is the year where open source models finally win. And if you haven't seen the news yet, GLM-5 just dropped. It is a 744 billion parameter monster. It scores a 50 on the Intelligent Index, and it is the first ever open coding model to do that. The model matches Opus 4.5 on many tasks at a fraction of a cost. Now, isn't that amazing and exciting? But there's a problem. This model is heavy. It is 1.5 terabytes. So you definitely cannot run this on a MacBook. You need a really heavy machine to do so. We'll also look at how you can run this specific model completely for free on a few different platforms. We'll take a look at the benchmarks, the actual output, where this model is really good at, and why I think this model is one of the best open coding models out there. Now, before you all come at me and ask, is this better than Opus 4.6? Well, probably not. However, it is open, it's cheaper, and it's finally good for real coding. So to prove it, I've been spending all morning playing around with this specific model. We'll take a look at together to see how this model performs, and let me tell you, I'm genuinely impressed. I expected it to break, stop running, hallucinate. However, it did not do that, and it was really good at all the tasks and was at par with the other paid coding models. So let's take a look. Now, GLM-5 is a 744 billion parameter model. To put that in perspective, the previous GLM 4.5 was only 355 billion. So that's like double in size. But the stat that actually matters isn't just the size, it's the hallucination rate. According to artificial analysis, the model has a 56 percentage point reduction in hallucinations compared to the previous generation. It doesn't just guess, the report specifically notes that it abstains from answering when it doesn't know, which is really cool because as a developer, that is a feature I've been really truly begging for. I would rather have an error message than a fake library or AI to hallucinate and come up with random answers that don't really exist. Now, Z is also calling this specific shift from vibe coding to agentic engineering. If you take a look at the Vending Bench 2, a benchmark that measures long-term operational capability, GLM-5 ranks number 1 among open source models, which is pretty cool. What's really cool is this specific test where they put this model in a simulation and told it to run a vending machine business for a year. They measured the final account balance, and Claude Opus 4.5 made $4,967 versus GLM-5 made about $4,432. It didn't just write code, it managed resources and made a profit, which is pretty freaking cool. That is terrifyingly close to the best proprietary model on earth. Now let's see if it can make me money. This model is definitely very promising. On top of that, GLM-5 is fully open. The model weights, the actual brain of the model, are on Hugging Face, and you can completely download it for free. However, like I mentioned, it's 1.51 terabytes. You can definitely get like the lighter versions, and I'm sure this number is going to change because the model just came out. And one thing that I've seen that even like Theo comments on, right now with the open models, they're going to progressively get better as time passes. However, if Anthropic releases a Opus 4.6, and if it is slow at the beginning, which it was initially, it is not probably going to get that much better. But with open models, it's going to get progressively better. They're going to iterate and make it better. So I definitely see this number going down over time. Now, if you take a look at this specific benchmark table to figure out and reason how smart is this specific model, by humanity's last exam, that is the hardest questions humans could come up with, GLM-5 scored a 50.4 compared to Gemini 3 45.8, Claude Opus 4.5 by 43.4, GPT 5.2 by 45.5. Math competition problems, GLM-5 scored 92.7, and everyone's around 92 to 93%, which is again very similar in the same range. Then in terms of coding, can it actually write code? Like, here's a bug, real bug from GitHub, fix it. 77.8 versus Opus 4.5 to be 80.9, GPT 5.2 to be 80. Very close again. In terms of terminal bench, run commands in the terminal to solve problems, nearly tied. In terms of like agentic coding, can it do multi-step tasks without getting lost? GLM-5 beats everyone. So with BrowseCom, which is browse the web, find info, complete tasks, it is 75.9, which beats everyone, with Opus 4.5 being 67.8. Now that's crazy. Similarly, on other benchmarks as well, it's a 3-way tie or it's pretty close, which is just insane because this is a open weights model. Then in terms of how much it costs to get stuff done, DeepSeek is 1034, which is the cheapest. Gemini 3 Pro is 5478, which is the most expensive. So in terms of the benchmarks as well, GLM-5 is getting really close, or it's better in certain tasks compared to the other premium models that we have seen so far. So it's honestly, like, I think it's one of the best open models out there. Now the question you've all been waiting for, how can you run GLM-5? How can you get it to run tasks? But there are a few ways you could do so. First of all, you could try it out in a bunch of your favorite coding agents, like it says. However, if you go to Kilo CLI, it's a CLI for agentic engineering. If you haven't tried that before, GLM-5 is in fact free for a limited time. I'm pretty sure it's going to change very soon, and that's exactly what I've been doing. So first off, you could just simply go to VS Code or Cursor, go to the extension, look up Kilo Code, which is a VS Code extension. That's what I use to use Kilo in my editor. And then I've been just using the agent manager, and then this specific chat window itself is like massive at this point. I've been randomly running into these rate limit exceeded. However, it just waits and retries it. I don't have to do anything really. And the feature that I got it to build was this feature on my course platform, because one of the feedback that I've received for my course is that it would be really nice if folks could just simply comment right underneath the lesson so they can ask me any questions as well. It has taken my username, like my first name and last name, the timestamp, and it has added that underneath here so I could ask a question and post a comment, and it literally one-shotted it. It built the whole thing, as you can see, and now I could just react to it, or other folks can react to it and then accordingly display it. Now that necessarily did not work, but I believe there is an existing prompt that I've given to fix it, because I ran into the rate limit error. Now what's really cool is that I did not give it any context. Now this is a feature that I've been wanting to build forever. I definitely gave Opus 4.5 the same prompt. It got pretty good. However, it would get confused in specific cases that I found that GLM-5 was just really good at. I did not need to point out any specific files or give access to schema or whatever. It was able to create a schema that exactly how I would want, and it did not really struggle in areas where other models were struggling, which I found it really good in terms of like reasoning. And however, I feel like basic errors, unable to find a key property, like that's something that AI should be able to fix. It's a very basic. I don't know why it's struggling there, but after you point out the error, it's like it's fine. So what are the hardware requirements to run specific model locally on your machine? Well, the full BF16 weights of this model are 1490 gigabytes. Now, unless you have a cluster of 20 NVIDIA H100 sitting in your basement, which costs about $600,000, you're not going to run the full model natively on your metal today. So you might be asking, well, why not just use Claude Opus? What's the point? Well, according to the artificial analysis report, providers like Deep Infra are hosting GLM-5 for roughly 80 cents per million tokens. Compare that to a proprietary model like Claude Opus. Historically, Opus class models cost around $15 for that same million tokens. Now that is 20x price difference for a model that, according to the benchmarks, is basically just as smart. So if you're just chatting, maybe that doesn't matter. But if you are doing agentic engineering, where AI reads your entire code base every time you hit enter, that is a difference between a $50 monthly bill and a $1,000 monthly bill. And that is why this matters. You get the intelligence of Opus, but at a price where you can actually afford it to run it wild. So now the question is, where does this leave us? If you are paying $200 a month for Anthropic or OpenAI team plans, you need to start looking at your receipts. And is Opus 4.6 smarter? Yes, maybe. Right now, 100% it's a bit better. I feel the gap is closing very quickly. It, as Intelligent Index puts Opus at the top, but GLM-5 is the first open model to break a score of 50, which is insane. It's open weights, it runs through Kilo, so I don't need a server rack in my closet, but instead I still own the workflow. And it abstains when it doesn't know the answer, which is really freaking cool. So the open models haven't just caught up for the price to performance ratio, they in fact just won. As next steps, if you are interested, then definitely check out this other video that I created for how you don't need to pay $200 a month with Anthropic, and I make this claim that open source models are getting there. And the GLM-5, this just really proves my point, or to learn my AI workflow as well. All right, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.